I have no skills in marketing, but I would love to try it. Would you take a punt? I think you've got to have experiences in life.
Wow, I feel like we've got a lot to unpack there.
I want to know that you're curious enough to explore what we're about. I'm also looking for entrepreneurs myself. Yeah, Google was like my second client, probably the best experience of my life. That's a really good question. And if it doesn't work for you, you can move on to other things instead. I liked the idea of building something that could scale globally. Oof.
Welcome to another episode of Behind the Future. We have one of our regular co-hosts, Jess, back with me today. Jess, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Jess. I'm currently in year 13 studying media, business and economics, and then hoping to go to university and study marketing.
Fantastic. I think you were year 12 last time we had you here, so I'm sure a lot has happened. So thank you for being back with us. And we have a phenomenal guest with us today, the wonderful Gori. Gori, can I get you to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. So my name is Gori. I'm the founder of Upskill Universe. We're a training organization. We built some of the largest national and some global training programs on tech, data, AI, helping people feel really confident and comfortable with tech to get into tech roles or just to really get themselves higher up within their organizations.
Amazing. So we're here today actually at the University of Kent, aren't we? We're filming this live, so you guys on the camera won't be able to see this, but there's about 300 students behind you all listening in. So quite a different episode for us today. The first time we've done it this way as well. So Jess, can I ask you to kick off with the first question?
Okay. Going back to when you were our age, how did you get into, what did you do in university? What did you do? Did you do A-levels?
I did do A-levels. I actually studied chemistry. So my A-levels, I think, were chemistry or A2s and ASs were chemistry, maths, biology, and something else. I find myself, I don't know, I felt kind of drawn to the sciences. So that's why I did that. And then I finished my A-levels and went to Manchester University. Didn't really have a clue what I wanted to study, genuinely. My parents were saying, right, do something in accounting or engineering, but couldn't stand maths, wasn't going to do anything in medicine. Ended up studying chemistry and business, which is a bit of an interesting combination, but I thought, let's try it. And essentially, studied there. And then basically from there did my first internship in New York. So I actually flew the roost and went straight to the States, and I managed to get a job out there. And then from there, I started my journey doing building startups. So I've had Upskill is my third business that I've built over the years. And yeah, that's kind of it's been quite an eclectic journey, lots of stuff in between. But yeah, that's almost the short version of it.
Wow, I feel like we've got a lot to unpack there. I know when we spoke before, the studying chemistry, that was a bit of parental pressure as well, was it?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm Nigerian. So my parents, typical West African parents, were thinking there's a fairly set pathway that you should be taking. So think about doing engineering, think about doing accounting, something like that. My dad was a little bit off the cuff. He had built other businesses, so he liked the idea of doing something different. But he, at that point, had set up a pharmaceutical factory in Nigeria.
Wow.
So he was like, you're going to study chemistry, you're going to come work with me. And I was like, whatever you say, fine. But in my mind, I thought, let me just do it to get the creds I needed, right? For me, university was just get 3 years under your belt, make sure you can show that to employees, and that was about it. But yeah, I definitely felt the pressures.
So what would you say, especially we can see them today, the students, if people are feeling pressure from their parents, how would you, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I mean, look, your parents have your best interests at heart, right? They've done that journey, they've seen what studying can do for you. So it can be tough because if you haven't got experience to tell them why you want to go down a certain route, then it kind of just makes sense to listen to them and go down that route. And that's kind of how I felt. But I think you've got to have experiences in life, right? So you've got to think about what else can I try? Where else can I work? What else can I build that has me doing more outside of what potentially the university route would give to me?
Yeah.
But I'd say, look, it's tough because at that age I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? But I trusted my parents. Like I knew that they kind of knew what they wanted from me. So it is a hard one. You've almost got to kind of take that line. And if it doesn't work for you, you can move on to other things instead.
Definitely. And I think there's so many online resources now, even like this podcast, that actually, if there's something you really want, if you can find resources to help educate your parents, because maybe they don't know enough about that route themselves, you can start to have a conversation about it and see, because, it's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah.
We were chatting earlier, weren't we, about New York and saying how incredible that must have been.
Yeah. How did you come across it?
So I actually had a weeks-long internship at a PR firm in London when I was roughly around sort of 17. And, coming into my sort of last year at school and doing that. So basically I had a friend of mine whose dad ran an agency. I had no idea about it. I think he told me about it once when we were, I don't know, playing football or something. And I said, that's really cool. I'll keep that in mind for when I'm looking for a job. Right. And I said to him, could I come work there for a week? And, essentially he managed to get me a week's work experience there. I went through uni, got to my last year, and I reminded myself I did that internship and asked his dad who ran that firm, if he knew anybody abroad. Personally, I thought, right, I really want to work somewhere else. And people that I knew were going on like gap years and traveling around and all the rest. And I thought, I only want to travel if I get to work, because it doesn't really feel like I want to just go and explore. I want to actually kind of get to understand a different country. And out of all the countries I could pick, where else could I go that speaks English? Because I'm useless at languages. Like I just realized that in myself. So the person who ran the internship had a friend who worked at an agency in New York, and I contacted them and said, look, I'm studying chemistry. They had a marketing agency. I have no skills in marketing, but I would love to try it. Would you take a punt? Right. And I said, look, I will sort out my visa. I'll do everything that I need to do to kind of, to get myself set up there. Really long process, very expensive. I basically worked all summer just to save up to get that. It cost me something like $3,000 to get a visa to get over there. Managed to land a job as an internship at a digital marketing agency in Soho, in New York. So it was what's called a J1 visa. So basically you had a year, you had about a year and a half worth of visa. So you can go over there for a year. You didn't have to prove that you were better than any other Americans, but you could essentially be an intern for a while. And probably the best experience of my life, right? Didn't know anybody in New York, had never been to the States before. So it was my first ever time. And I thought, let me just, go and experience it. What's the worst that can happen?
That must have been quite scary though, like literally.
Yeah. And it was, because I also had to try and find I think the hardest thing was trying to find accommodation there.
Yeah.
Because
that you could afford as well, because
So I had no money. And the challenge is, I was trying to rent a flat in another country when I hadn't gone there yet, right?
Yeah.
So, I remember there's this thing in the US called Craigslist, which is like, it's almost like what's a yellow page, but you probably won't know what that is. But basically it was like a directory of ads of people sort of putting up their flat for rent or whatever it might be. And I had to reach out to people saying, look, I'm from the UK. Trust me, I am coming to the US. Do you have a flat that I can rent for like 6 months just to kind of, get myself grounded? And, it was really interesting. The flat that I know this is going off topic, but the flat that I ended up taking was a guy who, he'd advertised it as a 1-bedroom, right? But it wasn't a 1-bedroom flat. It was a studio that he lived in. So what ended up happening is I found a flat that looks great online, and I paid him a deposit and got there, and it was basically me and him living in the same room.
It's a bit awkward.
A curtain that kind of covered him up, and then I sort of sat there. So that was my kind of first experience of the States. But I don't know. I think, having grown up in London, I crave exploring and experiences and just wanted to get out there and, see what the world was like.
Just a quick note from me. We'd love you to hit the subscribe button. This helps us more than you might realise when it comes to growing this podcast, ensuring we can bring you the best guests possible. Thank you. Back to the episode.
Amazing. And how did that then help what you went on to do next? Because obviously you're not quite in digital marketing anymore. What was the journey from there?
Yeah. So, working for an agency, it was really interesting because they were essentially building like microsites for businesses. So you imagine, you go into a website, let's say you're looking at, Nivea or something's website, and then they do a campaign, and that campaign, they need to create a new site for it for people to kind of get access to. That was in the early days of sort of microsites.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated by the world of tech. I just thought from an advertising perspective, like you can reach so many people so quickly, through websites. And when I started working in the agency, one of the guys who were like the designer, I actually kind of got really chummy with him. And I said, look, I'd love to know how you build sites. Like, what do you do? So he sort of taught me on the side. I was an intern, so I was like, making some coffee, kind of filing some papers and sending out some stuff. But I spent lots of time with him. And he basically taught me how to build websites.
Amazing.
And then every evening I'd go home and play with stuff. So I built a blog and then I started playing with apps, and I just was hyper curious and loved kind of playing with stuff. So that set me on the journey to really feel, I think I can build something myself, which I'm sure if it makes money for itself would be an amazing way to kind of make a living, right? So, and I had a couple of other startups that I'd actually built in between. So whilst that happened, I actually met a guy outside of a club at like 5 a.m. and we decided to come up with an app that helps you find restaurants in New York. So we built it together, basically.
Love it.
So yeah, I've always kind of had that nature to want to kind of go and build stuff. But that was my first real taste of like what it means to like really explore the digital world and build something for yourself. And then that led me after a few years to go into Upskill, where I wanted to train people to do it.
Love it.
Yeah. So with Upskill, actually, I ended up finding myself teaching like a taxi driver, my local sort of Caribbean restaurant. I ended up teaching them how to build their own website. And then that's what got me into like, let me train other people to do this stuff. And that's where Upskill came from.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's, that kind of, and always be networking, like even outside the club at 5 a.m, you can meet someone that might be part of your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I always feel, somebody you meet will know someone that you don't. And the more you let people know what you're into, what you're up to, kind of what you're thinking about, you never know what this world will bring you. And I crave experiences. Like I love, going, doing kind of adventurous stuff. I've skydived a lot. I go to, I've spoken in lots of random countries. I lived in Moscow for a few months. Like I love exploring the world in that way and meeting people. So the guy that I met outside the club, we got into conversation about how, one, expensive New York was, and how, two, you can never find good, cheap eats that are actually good quality. So we decided, why don't we build an app where you can help people find on a map what new spaces were popping up and had really good discounts on.
Amazing.
So we built it. It was called Mapflex at the time. It was fun. Yeah, it's just a way for us to be able to eat free in the city, because essentially restaurants were giving us free food, and bring people together that we wanted to meet and know. So that was that was the first foray into like the startup world.
Love it. Are you thinking about entrepreneurship at all?
Yeah, I'd like to be my own boss.
Yeah.
What challenges did you face and how did you overcome them?
I probably faced quite a few. I think when I went to university, like choosing to study chemistry was fairly easy because it was the only thing that I thought I was good at school. But when I got there, I couldn't work out what I was going to do with it. So I always thought to myself, am I just going to do this to get the degree and then not know what I'm going to do next? And I remember when I left university, albeit I had a couple of startups that kind of in my mind, I wanted to build something. I think I applied to like maybe 50, 60 different places straight away, right? And none of them were coming back to me at all, right? And I think that job market wasn't that bad at that point. So it knocked my confidence quite a bit when I was coming out of uni trying to work out what I wanted to do. And that's when I got the idea to kind of see if I can do something abroad. Because I thought there's nothing in the UK that I think I can get to, and I want to go and experience more. So that itself kind of knocked me back a bit. And, getting that job was just a huge revelation because it allowed me to go out there and explore. But over the years, building startups is probably one of the hardest things that you can do, right? It is to a certain extent, and Becky, you'll know this, it's actually a little bit illogical, right? Because what you're trying to do is build a business that has so many different elements to it. You've got to run marketing, finance, you've got to hire people, you've got to kind of sell a product that people want. And if they don't buy, it can really hurt you because you're trying to grow a business. And with anybody who started a business will tell you it's probably one of the most challenging things to do. But the reward you get out of kind of seeing somebody buy even that first product, right? Or seeing somebody tell somebody else about how good their experience was with your product, it's an amazing feeling. And that's what kind of drives you to want to grow, build more and kind of grow more as well. But yeah, I'd say in building a business, hiring people is always a challenge, right? You want to find great people. Trying to sell your product, but market your product as well is always difficult. And just, over time, I've always found it quite, I've always seen these challenges as learning opportunities, right? I always feel like the world consistently tests you, right? We all have challenges every day, and they're different. They're relative to kind of where we are in our life. But I always say those are tests, right? And you're capable of more. So keep pushing yourself to be able to go through them is key.
Love that. How did you, the hiring side of things? Because I absolutely agree with you. Like it's hard to find the right people that fit the mission you're on, but also to get the right people at the right point. Because when it's a startup, you've got no money. So you're like, I need brilliant people, but they like to get paid a lot of money and I don't have a lot of money. And how did you overcome some of that? What, any tips on getting good people around you?
Yeah, well, it's a challenge. And I think I kind of wish I could start a startup in this day and age, especially with AI out there, right? There's so much you can do with a lot less. Than people realize. Like back in the day, you had to hire someone who did your operations, kind of help you do stuff. When you start a startup, you basically do everything, right? And if I was to break down kind of how the hiring has gone for me over the years, and I've run Upskill for about 10 years now. So, we've hired probably over 30, 40 people. We've trained over 800,000 people globally across the world. And I've done work in everywhere from the Philippines to all over. So I've built a business which has had people that I've actually hired in other countries as well. When I started off, it was just me. And I actually got an apprentice who worked with me. And that apprentice basically was like almost like an extension of me and just did all the work. So in the early days, you have to hire people who basically, yes, they have job titles, but they have to do more than what those job titles say. So like for your first job, if you're working with a small startup, you got to kind of be doing lots of different stuff, which I think is really important to find people that are that sort of dynamic and agile and able to and adaptable to what the business needs. Then you move to the next level where you're actually hiring people that are in probably more defined roles. So roles that you can rely on them to do something for you. So they're almost specialists. So you start with generalists, then you get specialists. And at that point, you just need to know that those specialists can tell you what they're doing and have you understand and believe and trust that they're going to be able to do it well. And then when you get a bit bigger, so you get past 10, 15, 20 people, you start to hire senior specialists. So people that are actually better at you at doing that job. Because for the most part, as a founder, you kind of think you can do everything better than everybody else, but you've got to get out of the way, right? It's really, really important to do so. So, once you get there and then you start to kind of grow from that onwards. But the first stage, I remember I was trying to hire people and had this really deep sensation that I was kind of putting food on their tables, right? Like I'm giving you a job, that's your livelihood, right? And I've just come up with an idea that I'm hoping that you're going to, you want to kind of go on the journey with me on. So a lot of the time I had to make sure that I had the vision that I had for the company was really clear. So everybody that I hired knew what we were trying to achieve, wanted to work with us on that journey, wanted to help us grow. And that essentially is what helped build the foundations and the culture you need to kind of grow a business.
Definitely. And I think that comes back to having real good clarity as the founder to be able to evangelize the mission that you're on and get people to be excited about it. Because if they're not excited, especially in those early days, because as you say, you need them to be able to do a bit of everything.
Yeah. Because they're not just there for the money. We want to make money in our first jobs, but realistically, we feel there's a purpose behind it all, right?
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing this for? And you've got to help people feel connected to that, which I think is really important.
Yeah, if people are just looking for the 9 to 5 and they want a really good salary, a startup probably isn't the place to be until it's got further on. But even then, there's just something different, isn't there, about that team that have been hands-on making it all happen.
Yeah. And you're in the trenches together. Yeah. You're going through difficult times. You can be a shoulder to cry on. I've probably cried a couple of times myself in the early days. You need the people around you who care and they want to do it. They want to have fun doing it, but they really want to do it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
When you're hiring people, what do you look for? What makes someone stand out?
For me, and it's interesting because I run a training organization, so I can train you on pretty much everything. So the things that matter to me is curiosity. I need someone who's hyper curious, someone who, when they walk into the business, thinks, right, I want to be able to challenge a couple of things and give some ideas on what else we could be doing. Because it's actually hard. As humans, we are innately curious. We're born as curious beings, but as we get older, we start to kind of dampen that a little bit based on all the other sort of adult challenges and questions and things that come into our way. So when I speak to people or interview people, I want to know, what have you built on your own? Right? What have you done outside of the traditional, I worked here and I worked here and I work here? I want to know that you are curious enough to explore what we're about what we're trying to achieve, what our competitors are doing. So we have tasks and tests for everybody that we hire, but that curiosity has got to be really key. I'm also looking for entrepreneurs myself, right? People who kind of want to build things themselves within the sort of vehicle that I built for them.
Love that. Does that help? Does that
Yeah.
give some good ideas?
Yeah.
And when we were chatting before, you said obviously, and I think you mentioned it earlier here, that you started off working with kind of smaller local businesses. But I know you landed Google as a client very early on as Upskill, which is incredible to have ever at any point landed Google as a client. How did that happen?
Yeah. So Google was like my second client. Essentially, before I was working with Google, I was doing some contracting work, supporting an agency that was helping kind of bring to market a like societal upskilling program. So basically, we were helping businesses build websites for free, and it was like my forte. I love doing this sort of stuff. So I said to an agency, "Let me just help you kind of do the logistics and help you kind of place trainings here and there, and then maybe even I can deliver some training." Right. So I taught myself to do that, and I was working with that brand for a while. And then probably for like a couple of years. And then post that, I basically thought, right, Google as an organization are almost the perfect partner that I would love to work with, right? And as for me, kind of launching a brand, I knew it's really important to know who would your ideal client be. Now, what Upskill were doing in the early days, we were trying to get corporates to invest in closing the societal skills gap, right? And my thought was that the responsibility was on a big tech firm who are creating the tech that we all use to offer free training, right? And how do I get them to do more of that? And essentially, I actually pitched to Google. I said, the way I worked through is like, I knew I had a contact to work for Google. I went and had a coffee in their office. Just a general one, be like, hey, by the way, I'm really interested to learn a bit about what you do, right? Went in there, had a coffee. I then tried to have more coffees with a few more people, got a few more people to know who I was in the organization. And then when I heard that they were thinking about doing a larger kind of societal program, I said, okay, well, I think I've got some ideas for you. I've worked on some other programs with you, and then basically built it up that way. But I'd say the key for me was knowing more people in the organization, people who knew my name, who were happy to kind of share, oh, I've met him, sounds really interesting. And then from there, that starts to build a relationship and an opportunity for us to be able to work with them. And to date, we've been working with them for over 10 years. It's been we've driven one of their largest digital skills program, globally.
Amazing.
Training students, training people on lots of different skills over the years. So
it's incredible. And once you've got them as a client, it makes all the other pitches a bit easier. Well, Google trust us. So
it does, but also the challenge about getting a big client so early is that if you're working with kind of, these big players, they expect you to be a certain size and entity, right?
Yeah.
They're used to working with big agencies. So a lot of what I had to do was, and I'm sure you heard the term, you got to fake it to make it, right? Right. So for me, I was always like, you got to fake it till you become it. So you've got to kind of act in a way that helps them believe you can do it, and then find a way kind of while your duck feet are paddling on the water kind of to get it done. So little things like they would come back to me and say, right, we're looking to we want to drive a marketing campaign in this sort of way. What do you think? And I say, oh, you know what? I'll have a chat with our marketing team. We'll come up with something. And it was just me and the apprentice, right? I'll say, finance will get back to you on that. And they were like, oh, you didn't send an invoice. I'm like, I'll get back to you. I'll speak to finance about it. Again, it was just me and the apprentice, right? So it was trying to create that world where I knew I was hiring and building, but also learning from what I knew I needed to be able to get to the level that they needed me at as well. So you need to do that in the early days to get to, that's entrepreneurship. It's a bit of a hustle.
I did the exact same when I started the business. I had the finance email, the accounts email, the marketing email, and just was like, oh yeah, I need to go and chat to that team.
Yeah.
Me.
And you create it separately. You create all these emails and you wear different hats and the rest of it. That's what entrepreneurship's about.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's great.
Yeah.
You're like, and now with AI, I'd be writing emails as an accountant. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so much. It's such a different world right now.
Yeah, it's like, this is what I want to say. Make me sound like an accountant, though.
Boom. Perfect.
Bring the personality out of it. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Get the
Very
balance
mean
right.
for accountants.
Get the balance right. Yeah.
Any other questions, Jess?
What made you be an entrepreneur? Like, because to me, it can sound quite scary just getting out there. Like, how did you just do it?
That's a really good question. I genuinely always felt that I wanted to build something for myself. I even remember when I was probably your age, around sort of 16 or so, when I was at school, there was like a group of people that I knew that were running like under 18s parties, right? And they were organizing these parties in one of the local clubs. And I was fascinated about how they were using that to make money. Like the fact that, because I just felt like I was a consumer. I want to go places, I want to have fun, I want to meet people. But these people would build something that other people loved and were going to. And I thought, I like the idea of building something that, one, other people love, it helps other people, and it makes money for itself. And so when I remember sort of seeing these guys do that, and then even through uni, hearing people starting magazines and different sort of business, I was like, I never had the immediate confidence at uni, but I really wanted to build something for myself. So post uni, in working with that firm and meeting that guy at the club, you know, that gave me a bit of confidence to kind of have a go at it, right? So I'd only really ever genuinely had one real job. That was that internship at the marketing agency. Contracted here and there, but as a sole contractor, doing a bit of work here and there. But I always want to see if I could build something. And again, you know, the stat that 90% of startups fail, right? Like that never bothered me. I always thought, you know, I should fail at least a few times, but I'm going to build something that essentially, you know, could be huge. And if I believe in the product, even better. So yeah, over the years, I've always felt, I'm lucky I've had the confidence in myself to be able to bring something to market that I know people will buy, right? And if you have that and you test it and you tell more people about it and you get people's feedback, then that gives you the confidence to know that, you know, it's a goer.
For all the latest marketing and brand news, follow the Drum Mag on Instagram.
Love it. And you've gone international. Was that always a dream that you wanted to be able to train people across the world? And how did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem that I was trying to solve with Upskill is how to tackle the societal skills gaps. Everyone feels confident in tech, right? Because I taught myself and I thought I could teach others. But the problem that I solved is borderless. It's not just the UK. And I liked the idea of building something that could scale globally. Right. So I think after year one, I did a project in, I think it was Ghana. It was my first place. You know, somebody in Google has said, "Oh, we got a project in Ghana. You know, do you have any people on the ground there?" And I was like, yeah, sure. We've got people on the ground there. Of course, we'll get over there and make that count. And then I remember flying over and then basically recruiting really frantically, you know, who wants to come work with us on this project. But I always thought, like, if I could do it in the UK, I could do it anywhere else, right? And I thought, actually, I don't need to prove myself in the UK. I just want to be able to do it everywhere else and just see what works. Yeah. So some of those opportunities came out of, you know, somebody pulling us there. Sometimes it was me saying, you know, I'd love to do something in Saudi Arabia. Some of them came out of, I've got a friend of mine living in this country. I want to go over there and go stay with him. Let me go and see if there's any job opportunities there as well for us to work. It. Yeah. So yeah, always thought global in how we approach what we do.
Yeah. And has that, obviously, because there's not just language barriers, but there's also cultural barriers to make sure that everything's kind of on point. And like, I guess how we train here in the UK might be different to other places. Has that been something you've had to work around?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I would say Upskill is known to be one of the largest sort of human-led training providers. We do a lot of instructor-led training, especially on tech, which means that in any country we deliver training in, I need to find people who are as charismatic, as passionate, as wild as I need them to be to get everyone excited about tech. So in each country, we look for the same kind of character of person, but those individuals will help us understand the market better as well, because they know, you know, what the challenges are, what it means to engage around tech around that space. And that's been the way we get into market. So finding people on the ground who can tell us about the cultural nuances. You know, we build content that we localize in different regions. So we do training sessions in the Philippines and Mexico, all over. And we now have this amazing network of like trainers and experts in all these countries that essentially act like our ambassadors, who tell us about, you know, if you're talking about content in a certain way, you need to think about this, or small businesses have these challenges that you need to be able to help them kind of face with the content that you're building. So yeah, you have to, if you do go global, you need to understand that local nuance matters a lot.
You can't just pick up exactly what you're doing and drop it somewhere else and expect it to fly. Like it's
people fail a lot that way because they feel like, hey, you know what, if I just if I don't do the hard work to know what the market needs and just send my stuff there, it'll work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, there's a great case study actually. Starbucks did that in Australia. Like they just tried to take their US model to Australia. They were like, English speaking, we can just do the same thing. I think if you Google it or look on YouTube, there's videos about it and how like they just absolutely failed because they didn't realize there was already such a coffee culture in Australia and it was such a big thing. And they just absolutely missed their mark with the kind of mass market. And it just failed.
And it can have a huge backlash,
yeah.
right? People will say, one, you won't get the traction you need, but also people might say this isn't the right market. And internally, that level of investment, it can be costly as well.
Yeah.
But that's why you see like different brands almost have their product equivalents in other countries under different names.
Yeah.
Because you've got to think differently. Like, Walker's here might be Lay's in another country, might be something else in another country because those local nuances matter.
Yeah,
right?
the colours of the bags always mess me up though when you're on the continent. I'm looking for salt and vinegar and it's not there.
It's not green, is it? You're like,
I know.
is it blue? What's going on?
And Gary Lineker's not there. I don't know.
It's a bit different, yeah.
What else? What haven't we covered?
What is your one biggest tip for students?
Oof. It kind of comes from the heart for me. Like I said before, I crave experiences, and I think those experiences have shaped who I am. So I'd always say, make sure you go build something, right? AI is an incredible platform to be able to play with and build stuff. And I think if I'm going to a job or if I'm hiring somebody, I love when somebody says, hey, I built something or I did a mock example of something that I wanted to show you, because it shows your creativity, right? And I think often people feel, I'm just going to walk into an interview and answer a bunch of questions. If you can show them you've actually built or played with something, it stands out way more than anybody else because it shows you put effort into it and you're excited about it as well, right? You might be going from interview to interview to interview and saying, I don't have time to research your industry. If you build something, it shows that they can, they'll get something from it. So that's a big tip for me. I feel you're so blessed in this world with having an assistant like AI, right? Or Gen AI that can build stuff for you, that you need to leverage it and get really creative with it. That's definitely a tip. And I've probably got a list of other tips, but it's tough out there, right? Like the job market is getting a little bit harder. Organizations are thinking a bit differently about who they want to hire. So you've got to get more creative about how you get hired, right? And also tap into your network. That would be the only other one I'll say. Like networking is so important. I used to say, it's not, and you might have heard this kind of, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You've heard that before, right? Which is where like build your network. I always think of it more of it's not just what you know, it's not just who you know, it's who knows what you know. So the more you start telling people about what you do, what you're really interested in, they will spread that word for you, right? Yeah. So get more people knowing about what you're passionate about, what you're excited about, what you've built recently. And that will spread and people will pick that up themselves,
And if someone's listening to this today thinking, but I don't have a network, Gori, how do they start to build a network?
I think you're also blessed in this day and age to have the likes of platforms like LinkedIn. Yeah. I love sharing this kind of advice. People often don't think about, they sort of think of LinkedIn and these social platforms as I have my profile and let me wait to see if someone's going to come find me, right? They're going to come find me and say, that's interesting. It doesn't really happen quite like that. For example, I'm here speaking to you about my experience, my journey. Yeah. I would expect if any of you were interested that you could write out to me and say, hey, I loved what you said about X. Would you be happy to tell me a bit more about your journey? And can we connect? Right? Using platforms like LinkedIn or others just to reach out to people that you find interesting. That's how you can build your network without actually having people around you. And it's much easier to do now than ever before. And the interesting thing is, if you reached out to somebody, even if you think that they are, I don't know, CEO of an organization or a founder here, you'd be surprised how much they'd want to help you. You'd be surprised. It's in our nature to help other people. We get such a reward from it. So don't hesitate to reach out if you're on so have you heard of LinkedIn before? I guess you're familiar with LinkedIn. It's like a professional platform. You can reach out to people on there. Don't hesitate. Sort of say, hey, by the way, you know what? I'm, in sixth form. I'm doing X. I'm studying this, but I'm really interested to learn about X. I loved what you said on that podcast about Y.
Yep.
Can I get 5 minutes of your time? and, send that out to 20 people. Trust me, 2 or 3 will come back to you.
Yeah.
And say, sure.
And it is that personal approach, isn't it? Because LinkedIn very easily, if you're not careful, will do the just, I'd like to connect standard.
Yeah.
Same thing you could say to anyone. You want to say the personal thing. You want to pick out why do you want to connect with them, even if you haven't found the podcast they were on. You find, I see you built this, or I see you did this, and just that, and that will be enough.
It shows that you care, right?
And the worst thing will happen is they might accept you and not respond. They're likely to accept you. Not many people don't accept, but they might not respond. They might be busy. But then you're in their circle, and then you try again, or you try someone else.
They want to come back to you. Like, that's what matters. Getting in their inbox so they can at least see it. Know who you are.
Yeah.
Definitely a good way to do it.
And there are also still the tactics that people like yourself and I use still to sell our companies. Like, we're doing that. We're scrolling through LinkedIn, finding the next person I can sell our services to, who can I connect with, who can help us grow what we're doing here, who might want to come and sponsor, who might want to be a guest on the podcast. Like, we're using the exact same tactics. So it's... it
works. And a little tip from me, like, I do voice notes on LinkedIn, which people never do, right? And it's something different. You drop a voice note, you've only got 60 seconds to do it. Just hearing a voice, they'll be like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, they don't voice note back because they're also a bit awkward about it, but like, at least they'll respond, which I think is important.
You and I love a voice note on WhatsApp. I'm terrible for it. WhatsApp doesn't stop you though, does it? I'm like 10 minutes on, it's a mini podcast.
I've had people cut me off. They're just like, I couldn't listen to any more of it. It's too long. But like, it's just the technology is amazing now to use that kind of stuff.
It is. And it's just being human, isn't it? And trying to connect with people. Have you, because you've started using LinkedIn, have you got any kind of tips or anything that you've found worked for you?
Just make sure you keep up with posting, because once you stop.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to get back into it.
Yeah.
So you need to just continue, even if it's just a little thing.
Yeah. What have you found? Because I suppose sometimes people go, I don't know what to post about. Well, I'm not Gori that's doing all these things. What could I post about as a student? What have you found useful?
Just post about what you're doing, what you've found difficult and how you've overcome it. Just experiences as well.
Yeah.
And don't be nervous about the response.
No.
Right? We live in this world where we feel we're going to be judged if 2 or 3 people get back to me. I mean, I try to post at least every other day and stuff. I have some posts that reach 3 people, some posts that reach 100. Like, it doesn't matter to me. The fact is, it's me telling you about kind of my life. Something will be useful, something won't, right? Or something will be useful to some people and some not to others. So don't judge yourself on whether people like it or not. Just make sure it's out there.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to get seen, and that's how you're going to be engaged as well.
And I think you find those personal posts do so much more, don't they? Where you've put your heart out there a little bit, you've shared something, not the my business trains people. Yeah, okay, we know that, Gori. Tell us what's really going on. And then it's those ones that really connect with people.
Yeah, because look, we're humans at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
We go through a lot of shit ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We are real people with real challenges. And like I posted about my daughter sometimes, right? She's turning 5 next month. And I think of the world that I'm trying to build for her. And I know the world that I went through, it's tough, right? She'll face barriers that I inevitably faced when I was growing up, that, some systemic challenges will still be there when she's there. And I kind of want to build a better world for her. So I tell people that story because I'm on a mission myself, right? And even if you're not on a sort of a grand mission, people want to know, what are you building? Why are you building it? Like, what excites you about it? And people want to connect with that.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you can just get out there and tell your story. I built something fun, and don't worry about it. I'm sure someone out there will go, that is interesting, right? And I want to know about why you did it. Like, what was the thing that drove you? So yeah, feel free, post. That's what these platforms are for. Post and put it out there. I think it's key.
Definitely. It's been fun, hasn't it?
Very fun.
Really good.
Yeah.
Gori, you've been incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your time and for being here with us today. And Jess, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I hope we get you back on again soon.
Yep.
Thank you for stepping out of school today for us as well. I hope your teacher said it was all right. Some of them are probably in the audience, aren't they? I'm sure they said it was fine. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Behind the Future. We've been here at the University of Kent, and we look forward to catching you on a future episode. Thanks ever so much, and see you soon.
That concludes another brilliant episode of Behind the Future. Thank you so much for listening. You can listen back to other episodes on YouTube or your podcast platform of choice. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, as that will help us to grow this podcast, ensuring we can get the best guests on here for you to learn from. You can also follow us on socials, linked in the show notes for exclusive content. See you on the next episode.